from LPI Studios in Memphis, Tennessee. It's R&R on Sports with Uncle Howard Robertson.
His legacy is terrible with regard to the NBA.
Jennifer Conroy.
Anna Kournikova, she's terrible. But how much in endorsements did she have up until Serena now?
And the magnificent Larry Robinson.
Coaching changes. Scott Skiles just broke out and said, I'm out.
It's R&R on Sports.
Let me see those hands again. Hang on now. Hey, everybody jump, 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 jump.
Hello and welcome to a little R&R on Sports. I'm Howard Robertson.
And I'm Jennifer Conroy.
And I am the fantastic, the amazing, the extraterrestrial, the awesome, Y'all ain't gonna jump in?
No.
Y'all ain't gonna say nothing?
Extra too long.
Extra too long. Why you gonna say
Are you done? Are you done? Welcome. Hey, so good to have y'all back here yet again. Another weekend we're blessed to see. We are in the middle of a phenomenal time of season.
Yes.
Because we are at the apex or the beginning of so many seasons.
Sports everywhere.
Absolutely. So much so, absolutely.
I like that.
You making that
I've
word?
got a new song.
You got a new song?
Ooh,
in
sing it to
honor
me.
of the opening of the NBA season. Here's my song. Were you haters in the world? What do you say? Were you haters in the world? What do you say? While you were still in your wine, the Spurs beat them by 29. Were you haters in the world? What do you say?
Woohoo!
That was corny.
Yes, that wasn't
was absolutely corny, bro. That was
for
absolutely
I'm a Warrior hater.
Anybody
That was
out
corny,
there
dude.
within the sound of my voice that
was
whined
really,
about
really corny.
the Warriors trade and everybody going to the Warriors and how unfair it was going to be and how crazy. I mean, you know how they did OKC wrong and all of that.
No,
They
for him
got
to play
beat
8
by
years
the
with a player,
Spurs
and you didn't
by
have the decency to
29.
give
See,
him a
I'm a
call.
Warrior hater. All that did was prove me right.
As I've said before, number one, they do not have an inside presence. They only have 2 real defenders in their starting 5. No one's going to mistake Stephen Curry for a great defensive player. No one is going to mistake Kevin Durant for a great defensive player. So at the end of the day, if you're saying we're hating, it's just because it didn't improve the team.
Their defensive program is Draymond Green kicking folks. It's a good plan.
And then there's some talk about how he's going to deal with being the 5th or 6th
I think the
option.
problem's going to be with Klay Thompson.
You
Agreed.
think the problem's going to be with Klay
The
Thompson?
problem with Klay Thompson.
So do you think that what we saw the other night is a preview of things to come?
Yes.
Regarding their NBA president?
You bring Durant in to
Keep in
replace
mind,
Harrison
it
Barnes.
was December 20-something before they lost their first game last season.
Well, no, I don't think. I think they still got to work out the kinks, and I think they're gonna win a lot of games. Let's first put that. They got too many talented players to do that, to not do that. I think at the end of the day, though, will they compete for a championship?
No.
I don't believe that.
No.
I don't believe they will
All right,
compete for a
all right,
championship.
all right.
Now, what I did like was the fact that the Tim Duncan-less Spurs, Kawhi Leonard looked like he might be on a mission.
World beater.
True.
He might.
World
And this is
might
coming
be
on the
a
tail
mission.
end of rumors that they're having difficulties with LaMarcus Aldridge and chemistry, quote unquote. I didn't see any issues
I
with
didn't see
chemistry
any
last
issues.
night at
I
all.
didn't see any
Night.
issues. I didn't see
Yeah.
any issues.
And I
at
like
all.
Powell in the rotation too.
And I like Tony Parker. Now Tony Parker got to stay healthy, but all in all, I think Golden State Warriors is still going to be a beast in the West. I don't think they have the inside presence to really sustain any long run in the playoffs. But outside of that, number 2, I think Spurs and Los Angeles Clippers are going to be phenomenal, and I think the Utah Jazz is somebody that people got to pay attention to.
And the Wolves, the Timberwolves, I think are going to be dangerous.
Timberwolves are going to be represented well.
Okay. We have got so much in this show today. We've got tremendous iConversation guest in Scoop Jackson, but we've got something special coming up on the other side of this call, What Mattered Most, and we'll be back right after this. Back with what mattered most. What mattered most with you over the last week?
We've had Adam Silver come out and say basically that what Kaepernick has done doesn't matter, but it started the conversation that the NBA is focused on solutions rather than the protest, taking an entire league and trying to mandate how those players protest really bothers me.
It irritated me that Michelle Roberts was a part of that. You know, that she allowed that the NBA Players Association be a part of this so-called legislation of protesting. I just think it's a terrible precedent, and I hope these young men don't be punks.
Well, what bothers me is we had the SB speech with Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and they had been outspoken in the offseason. And then we had the NBPA and the NBA released a letter saying that they were discussing with players and teams and owners how the protest was going to be approached. And in that interim time, the players that were named, like Carmelo and Dwayne Wade, I haven't heard anything. Mm-hmm. There's been no response. There's been no statement. There's been nothing. But we do have players like David West, who we spoke to on the show a couple weeks ago, who have been protesting for a long time. His form of protest happens to be that when the anthem is played, he stands a couple steps back from the line of players. And so he's still protesting, but it's in line with what Adam Silver said, which was, I'm not going to threaten players about protesting, but I have let it be known that the NBA protocol is that they will stand.
Well, it's interesting to me as a child of the civil rights movement that our protests have become so pronounced and announced that your employer can dictate to you how you protest. That's very interesting.
Well, ask Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. I mean, literally, they suspended him.
Yeah.
Right.
So the precedence is there. David Stern let it be known that it's okay because all you punks, players unconscious, that's PUNC, all you punks bet not say nothing because we gonna suspend him until we get him to act the right way. And no one did anything. Same thing is gonna happen this year. They're gonna slap somebody's wrist and all of them are gonna fall in line, as I've said and thought before.
So what happened? What mattered most to you this week?
The start of an NBA season, no one really says anything around protest.
We're going to talk some more. We'll be back with more R&R right after this.
She call me Mr. Bombastic, really fantastic. Touch me on me back, she says I'm Mr. Romantic.
And we are back. I am thrilled personally about the World Series to see two storied teams, cities that have not been known for, big, illustrious winning, world championship winning teams come together.
I would say that in baseball,
in the world.
But in football and in basketball, the Bulls Chicago has done quite well.
It's been a minute.
Curse. It's the curse.
It's been a minute, though. It's been a minute for the Bears. Yeah. It's been a minute for the Bulls. It's been a minute until last season, obviously, for the Cavs. And you think it's been a minute for the Browns? And it's going to be.
It's going to be a minute for the Browns.
It's going to be a few more minutes for the Browns.
Cleveland's a whole nother conversation. But if it goes to Chicago, at least they know what the sweet taste of victory is.
Hey. But, I mean, this is so cool. And above and beyond everything, you're going to see some great baseball. But I think this is the year for the Cubs. I really do. You
think the Cubs are going to take it?
I think the Cubs are going to take it.
They're going to have to take away the Indians' ability to run the bases.
I love
Cubs got some killer pitching.
They do have some killer pitching.
You saw how they shut the Dodgers down.
What's the series right now?
Huh?
What's the series right now?
It's 1-0 as we speak.
It is.
I wonder if Steve Bartman will be forgiven.
Yeah.
Never, ever.
They blamed him for the loss of the whole series, man. Since 2003, this cat has been
unfortunate that you could go back. If your life had a big eraser on it.
Oh man!
I bet he still has trouble getting reservations. Who?
Your name what?
You ain't getting nothing.
Hey man, what
that
about
ended
the
his
WNBA?
white privilege.
What about the WNBA, man? I mean, they
Those
got a
girls are
champion.
ballin'.
And no one is talking about the Los Angeles Sparks.
So let's talk about
the
them.
WNBA
Let's
being
talk about them.
successful.
Talk about the Los Angeles Sparks. My question to Jennifer is, I mean, I love the WNBA and I love to watch them, but not
You
so
one of the
many
only
people
ones.
do. No, you're right. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a 0.3 Nielsen rating.
Which is
On
terrible.
television, that's roughly translated into 500,000 viewers across the 500,000 viewers across the
Really?
country. Yeah, and the games are averaging the league average is about 7,100.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay,
Well,
the
is it-
bigger teams like the Sparks and the I think the Mystics,
And the Lynx.
average
Lynx.
about 9,000 fans.
90? You mean 90?
9,000?
At the games?
Yes.
Ooh.
Now, my question
bigger number than I thought.
is this. I mean, are they going to make it?
I don't think so. I really, it'll be hard for them to make it, in part because people aren't as interested because they think that women can't compete at the level that men can. And to a certain degree, that's right. There's not a whole lot
But
of the
these girls
flash
are
and
playing.
panache.
They are playing better
These girls
fundamental
are
basketball than you see
Man,
in
I'm
the
telling
NBA.
you,
No
these
doubt.
girls
If you
are
had
No doubt.
looked
No
at
question
balling.
about
any of
that.
the games, any of the championship series games, I mean, they went at it, and plus their skill level is extraordinary.
Agreed.
Just, I mean, the Maya Moores, you understand why she's so successful. And I mean, just the Candace Parkers. These girls really are amazing.
They
ball
should
players.
have endorsements. They should have a mass marketing to bring people in. I think the fans that they have probably followed them from college, and they're loyal to players.
If they had audience, they would have
Yeah.
this. But my question is this. Why is it that I can go in a sports bar with 35 screens and see some of the most obtuse sports
Like
in the
curling.
world on at that time,
And
but
no-
rarely do I
Yeah.
see a WNBA game. And when
Yeah, wait a minute now.
wait a minute,
It's
hold,
much
hold,
bigger.
let me
It
finish.
does.
Let me
Pro
finish.
ball-
Let me
pro ball
finish.
is
Let me
much bigger
finish. And it's
internationally.
not that they don't do women's sports, because anytime women's soccer is on, it's going to be on some screens. in
Well,
a
it's
sports
going to be
bar.
on screens as if it's the World Cup or if it's the Olympics, because that's really when women's soccer gets played. And I think the women's MLS league has as much trouble as the WNBA outside of those major events. And those are world staged events,
Yeah.
not just within the United States. I think if they put some money in outside of the markets where these women play, the draw might be a little bigger. Or if you took some of these athletes and you really showcased them as women, people would have some interest too.
Oh, now that's interesting. Explain what you mean by as women.
These are women who are athletes. They are strong. They are beautiful. They exist outside of sports. And if you take the humanitarian side of it and put them out there and market them, I think people would have interest in players.
So they're not being positioned, quote unquote, as women now?
Not as women or as athletes. You've got Tamika Catchings, who is retiring.
Now as women or as athletes?
No,
Are you
people
saying?
don't pay
Are you
attention
saying?
to
Are
any
you
of
saying?
it.
Let's cut to the chase. You saying they play like guys,
Some of them do. Some of them
and they
have the same
and they act
skill
like
set.
guys, and that's a problem for guys.
I think that is a problem for guys, and I think that if you present these women as top athletes and you really market the league and make the draw of attention come to the forefront, you got to make it sexy. Sex sells. We all know.
Femininity is
Not necessarily even femininity, because these women are strong women.
Well, I mean, who you being sexy for?
in general.
I don't know
Because
about
strong-
that femininity
strong is
piece.
sexy.
I don't know about that
Come
femininity
on,
piece.
Jen.
Are you dumb?
Some of these women look like, you know.
Well, they did test Brittany Griner's DNA
Yeah,
to make
Brittany
sure.
Griner ain't the most feminine looking woman in the
No,
world. You know,
she
Simone
not.
Augustus. She just
What's
got
the
mad.
biggest thing they can do to survive?
I think they got to market better. I do believe they have to market.
They gotta
the game
put some
better.
money in
They
to
gotta
get some
really
money
show
out.
that these women are playing outstanding basketball. That's what I want to see. Is I could care less about their sexuality. I want to see them playing good basketball.
They do.
And they play phenomenal basketball, and I don't think that's being marketed. I don't think they're being marketed as an alternative, or another form of basketball that would be entertaining. And it is. It's extremely entertaining. I mean, Candace Parker, the young girl, what's the young lady? Oh, my God. She has an African name. She was actually WNBA MVP to play for Stanford. I mean, there are some phenomenal ball players.
Absolutely.
Tarasi.
Yeah.
All of them are just amazing. Maya Moore
Ooh-wee.
is amazing.
They're going to have to do something.
And these women are
something
socially
quick.
woke compared to their men counterparts. You see more women in the WNBA taking a stand, whether it be vocal or otherwise, than you do the men.
Good. Yeah. Now, let's talk about NFL real quick.
I'm a Dak fan. I ain't a Dallas Cowboy fan, but I'm a Dak Prescott fan.
I am too. And here's what I'm saying.
I hate the Cowboys,
here's what I'm
but
saying.
I love Dak
am
Prescott.
saying, and Romo is back on the field throwing passes and working out to some extent. I am saying this. I will tell you that if the Dallas Cowboys are stupid enough to bring back Romo in a starting quarterback position, I'm through with him forever. I mean, and I'm an evolving Cowboy fan.
You evolving Cowboy because of Dak Prescott?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think it would be the dumbest move
So you
in
actually
the world
think Jerry
to
Jones
replace
cares
him.
about you being an evolving Cowboy
He ought to
fan?
care about making a dumb move.
Well, but
don't.
he's done plenty. He's got plenty. I mean,
Okay.
And
you
he's
know,
making
and you talk about
money.
inequity.
You think they're going to start him?
Romo?
From
Yes.
what I'm hearing,
No.
they're gonna put him in there. And it would be a
Foolish.
assassination.
It would be
of
foolish.
all the press, because I find that there's a huge contingency of Dak Prescott fans
Absolutely.
that are pulling for the Cowboys.
But you know, among his biggest fans, his teammates.
yes,
True.
yes.
His teammates,
'Cause
they got
they're
chemistry.
winning.
They are rolling.
They're
It's time
winning.
to
They
are
Bledsoe.
rolling.
It's time to Bledsoe Romo.
Hey, well, we got to move on, but on the other side of this, we got a fantastic eye conversation with the one, the only Scoop Jackson. Stay with us. You sure you're awake?
I'm not so sure. I can't verify. I seem to be reflecting the light. You seem to be absorbing it. And together we have Jungle Fever on the Blue Ball Sports Show.
Powered by the Kazuki Network.
Hey, this is Dr. J.
Hi, this is Rika Ketchum.
This is John Hollinger, Vice President of Basketball Operations for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Tim Brown, NFL Hall of Fame inductee. You are listening to R&R on Sports.
It's your birthday. We gon' party like it's your birthday. We gon' sip Bacardi like it's your birthday.
Here we are with Eye Conversation, and today we have an old friend back with us on Eye Conversation. This
He's
is
a young brother, though, man. You can't call him old.
He's an old friend, Larry.
Oh, I
listen,
thought you called
would
him an
you
old
listen?
man.
Old
And
school.
never,
Now,
He got that. He
right
got
both
that
ways.
grace. See, I
and
know
never interrupt my introductions again. You understand me?
Yes, sir. That's
Columnist, ESPN analyst, supreme, Mr. Scoop Jackson. Scoop, welcome back to R&R on Sports, and please forgive that unfortunate and rude interruption.
No, man, it's all right. Look, I am an old man. I settled into that. I own that. I'm good.
You got your AARP card yet?
Nah, wait. I ain't say I was 18.
You ain't that old.
I said I was old. I ain't say I was 18 now. it ain't that serious. man. Come on
Be
now.
very
Well, listen,
careful.
okay, so do you remember the last time the Chicago Cubs was in the World Series?
He ain't that old.
For real? Not, thank you.
He's old school, but not an old fool.
What's happening, man? What's happening in Chicago? Are y'all talking about anything other than the Cubs?
Look, man, if I wasn't talking to y'all, man, I wouldn't think there was a sports world outside of us, man. We in a bubble here.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is all things, you know. And to be honest with you, that's the way it should be. We're doing this small film for Sports Center on the Cubs, and the producer came in on Saturday, and I tried to warn him. I said, he's coming from Connecticut. And I'm like, look, man, he said, we got to go down to Wrigley. We got to go down to Wrigley to shoot Saturday half a day. And that was before Game 5. I'm like, dude, look, I'm telling you right now, what you about to experience is unlike anything you ever, this is it. He's like, no, man, we're good. It's 5 hours before the game. I'm like, okay. Right. And, they don't know. They hear about it, but they don't know. And when you live in a place like this, you know the whole history behind the Cubs.
Right.
And you really realize how big their fan base is. They may have, outside of the Yankees, the largest fan base in America, and close to some Manchester United stuff if you're looking at something global.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right. So, but he didn't, he got it, but he didn't get it until he saw it. And he's like, you know what? I can't shoot. It's too. I'm saying, yeah, I'm telling you.
I told you.
We couldn't, it's like we had a whole wasted day because he's like, I can't move around. I can't do nothing. When you're looking at bars, like this is 5 hours before a game.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at bars where you have block-long lines, block-long lines to get into bars. And it's not like you only got 4 or 5 bars. You have like damn near 40.
Mm-hmm.
You got options. And there's still lines.
Mm-hmm.
You can't move down the street. It's like, I tried to warn him. I was like, it's not going to happen. So that's kind of the world we've been living in. But living in Chicago, we are comfortable with this because we've been hearing about this for so long. So we're basically mentally prepared to deal with being in a bubble right now and acting as if nothing else exists in the world besides the Cubs.
So you got
good.
You've got the 100-year curse. Are there superstitions that people are following leading up to the World Series that everybody's doing, or is it individual? It's a 100-year curse.
You know what? That's funny you asked that because after losing Game 1 yesterday, I haven't seen anything. But leading into when they were down 2-1 in the series prior to this against the Dodgers, there were people who would stop doing certain things because they didn't want to be the jinx.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing to be added on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't even tell you how many things it was. To be honest with you, walking around, I think some people stopped washing up.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are still wearing the same socks.
Right? They're like exactly. What did we say? They had on their two dance cologne, and then on their 4th dance.
But the thing, the thing that's most interesting about the Cubs to me is the fans have been so loyal for so long and so long suffering. I mean, they have my grandmother was born in 1901. Her big sister, who lived in Chicago, was born in 1897, and she was an intensely loyal Cubs fan. I mean, and she watched them. You hear what I said? She was born in 1896. Yeah. So obviously, when they went to the series the last time, she was around. Exactly. But she lived to be like 95 years old, and she never stopped listening to every Cubs game she could.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got a whole town full of
I think everybody
folks.
has that in their right. I think everybody has that in their family who stays here, or is from here, or has some, some family or some lineage here. Everybody has a story like that. My godbrother's father, who was like my other father, he passed away at 94.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And for his 90th birthday, he was saying he would still listen to the Cubs on the radio. He still listen to them on the radio.
Yeah.
Right. And for his 90th birthday, we went out and got his got Pop his own, a new Cubs jersey with the number 90 on the back.
That's great.
And now that he passed away, his grandson is wearing that. His grandson his grandson's in Denver, Colorado, crying, watching the game while he got on his grandfather's.
That's great. That's beautiful.
So it's everybody has that type of lineage, going on here, and the stories are amazing. Real quick. In doing this piece that we're doing in writing the script for the piece that we're doing for SportsCenter on the Cubs, I wrote an early thing that there was no one in Chicago alive at the time the Cubs won the last championship. Come to find out, we did some research, and
there is somebody.
One person in Chicago that is 110 years old.
Wow.
But you're looking at a city that is the 3rd largest in America. That in just the general area has like 3 million people, but, on the outskirts probably skirting around 7.
Mm-hmm.
To have that wide of a range, it can only find one person at the age of 110 that's had this happen. have the largest fan base, one of the largest fan bases in the nation, everybody got that.
That's
door.
incredible.
You know, it's an amazing thing. Even if they don't win, it's just amazing that they got there.
Hey, listen, this is On Our Own Sports, and we're speaking with ESPN columnist Scoop Jackson, Chicago Cub fanatic. Listen, Scoop, when you think about first question I have to ask you is this: is Bartman now forgiven?
I don't know. That's a great question. But that is a great question because a lot of people I know really came to the realization over the years that he had nothing to do with it. So the conversation on Bartman in Chicago has kind of shifted a little bit. You know, and I think it depends on who you speak to. And I think you could draw a line as a narrative of who is really a diehard Cubs fan and appreciates the Cubs for baseball, and who's a really, really diehard Cubs fan and just in it because. You know, I think those diehard baseball fans understand they've forgiven Bartman a long time ago. You know, and especially like we got Southside fans like me, you know, Southside who would deal with the Sox. And, you know, we mess with the Cubs because it represents the city. We forgave Bartman a long time ago. But there are those who to this day still blame him in everything. It's not just him. You know, look, you can't, we part of the shot we had a goat, you know, to exercise that demon. You had people walking by like poo-pooing on the goat.
Well, listen, for all you guys who doesn't know what we're talking about, Steve Bartman in the 2003 National League Championship Series reached out on the field and touched the ball, which gave who was they playing against? I forgot who they were playing against. I
forgot who they played against too because Glory went out for the thing.
Well, nevertheless, he's been looked at as the guy who prevented the Cubs from going to the World Series back in 2003. And this guy was the most Steve Bartman.
I think so.
He was the most hated.
I think so.
No, it wasn't the Cardinals.
It wasn't the Cardinals.
He was the most hated individual in Chicago, I know, at least for a few years. So,
he's been there for look, he got a 30 for 30 done on him. It was serious. But
Real serious.
Technically, he didn't even reach. It was a foul ball.
Yeah, it was a foul ball.
A catchable foul. So he didn't even do anything wrong. He had the same reaction everybody else would. You know, and for him to get what he got, that's what I'm saying. I think you come here and spend time, a lot of people, I want to say the majority, they're like, we know this had nothing to do with him. One, they had 2 more outs to get in that game 6, and they had another game in game 70. So you can't blame all of that. Those that are true to baseball here have forgiven him a long time ago, but you still have that core, that diehard Cubs fan that are really just caught up in the whole curse thing. You know, that, like I say, they spit on black cats, they kick goats. You know, they hate Bartman. You know, Leon, you cannot mention Leon Durham's name. You know, all of that. They still believe in that. You still have all that here. But I say to say that if they do win, I think maybe there will be some in that contingency that let that go.
Now, speaking of,
they may let it go.
Speaking of, if they do win, real quickly before we go to break, what's your prediction for the series?
I think the Cubs will probably pull it out in 6 just because of pitching. I know I was worried about Kluber, you know, last night and him being hot, and, you know, I didn't expect them to really win. But I think with the pitching staff they have and seeing how they bats can go down and wake up for like 4 or 5 games, you know, in a row, I like that. But my biggest concern, and I'm taking the Cubs in 6, but my biggest concern is, you know, what happens when Andrew Miller gets on the mound.
Okay,
you know, he is so good that they have to have multiple digits. I mean, you know, they have to have more than 1 run relief, you know, by the time he steps up. You know, and I don't know when Terry Francona's going to pitch him, but I can't really see as hot as the Cubs can get them over the course of 4 games getting steady and hitting him. I'm thanks God that he's a reliever instead of a starter.
2003, it was against the Florida Marlins, by the way.
Florida Marlins.
Okay. Now, we're going to be back on the other side of this break with so much more with Scoop Jackson right after this message.
My flow, my show brought me to go. That brought me all my fancy things, my crib, my car.
I'll play the blues for you.
Blues in the Basement with Stephanie and T-Shaw.
Some great festivals going on around the tri-state area.
Got your dancing shoes?
Man, as long as I'm with you, baby, I'm always be on my toes.
Thrill is gone. Blues in the Basement, part of the Kazukian Network.
The thrill is gone away.
This is Scoop Jackson, ESPN, ESPN Deportes, ESPN2, ESPNW, ESPN.com, ESPN The Magazine, ESPN I Write Checks for Stephen A. Smith. You are listening to R&R on Sports.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night, and I feel alright. The party's here on the west side, so I reach for my 40 and I turn it up.
And we're back with iConversation here on R&R on Sports, and we've got ESPN special. Robert Scoop Jackson. Scoop. Okay, so I guess we beat baseball to death, huh?
I got one more. I got one
you
more
got
baseball
another.
question.
Lord.
Go for it.
Basketball season.
So I know it's basketball season, but the eyes of the nation have been on Chicago in terms of gun violence and violence in general. Mm-hmm. And people always say that sports is the great unifier. So having the World Series in Chicago, does that drop the violence for even a little bit?
We don't know. That's a great question. It's too early to find out and see. For the most part, the area where most of the Cubs fans stay and where the organization is based is not an area where a lot of the crime goes on and a lot of the violence happens. And, you know, a lot of the, I to be honest with you, I don't think the people that are out here wilding out, as they tend to do sometimes, give a damn about the Cubs.
And then they're watching baseball.
It means nothing to them. So I don't see how that's going to really stop or curb, what's going on and some of the violence that happens here in Chicago, because I don't think there's a direct correlation or connection. But we'll see. It will be interesting to see if the power of sports does translate to some calmness, at least for the period that they are in the World Series. And, if it does, now we're operating on a whole other case study to look at the power that sports really does have. So, yeah, that would be interesting to see. That would be really interesting to see. But as right now, it's too early to tell, but I can predict that. And to be honest with you, being from here and having that a part of our fabric since, for probably as long as the Cubs have been around, like this is really nothing new to Chicago.
Right.
It's going to take so much more. There's so many variables, that go into trying to get this thing together, and none of it has anything to do with sports. So, but who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Did you notice how the president exposed himself as the Chicago transplant that he is because he pulls? His team is really the Sox.
Oh yeah, well I'm the same. My team is really the Sox.
Oh really?
I'm a
That's Southside, bro. Southside.
I'm not.
Yeah, I know.
But listen.
Southside don't roll like that.
This is what I don't understand, and I talk to people about this all. I was just talking to people about this in Wrigley yesterday. I don't understand why there's a hatred between, Sox fans to Cubs and Cubs fans to Sox, because at no time, outside of the time when I think the Sox won it in 1906, then the Cubs doubled up in 1907 and 1908, at no time since then have either one of these teams been in a position to stop the other team from winning the World Series.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
right.
It's like, as Chicagoans, if we all ride and die with Chicago, which we say that we do, when one team is done, then we can at least support the other team. We don't have to jump on the bandwagon. We don't have to kiss their behind. We don't have to bow down to them. But at some point, if the Cubs are doing well, hey, that means Shy's doing well. I'm with you all. As long as you're not in the way of getting with the Sox. So this, the Mets and the Yankees meant the World Series together win.
This is R&R on Sports, and we're speaking with world-renowned journalist, ESPN scribe, Robert Scoop Jackson. Scoop, I feel the exact same way when it comes to Louisville versus University of Louisville versus Kentucky. It's like a rivalry that the other one could just be terrible, but I'm like, it's all good for the state, regardless of who.
Right.
As long as one's not impeding the other one's progress, no one has it like that. It's like, I hate blue, I hate red. It doesn't matter. So,
but here's the deal: you have multiple sports that they compete at. So at some point in time, there is a chance in certain other sports that both schools have that want to be in the position to stop the other one from getting something.
Right.
The Cubs and the Sox have been so bad for so many years, they never in each other's way.
Well, listen, let's get some basketball. Let's get some basketball.
Yeah, What else matters to you in terms of that?
Nothing. The Oakland Raiders and NBA. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Now, listen, we have a commissioner and an executive director of the Player Association trying to legislate protests. Can you shed some light on why I shouldn't just be enraged as a player about them trying to legislate how we're going to protest the injustices that's taking place in the United States of America?
Well, personally, I can tell you why you shouldn't be enraged, because you should expect it. I don't know too many corporations inside of corporate America, and we still have to look at the NBA as what it is. It's a corporation inside of corporate America. Why you expect them to act any way different? My thing is that, in my outrage, I hold for the people who don't do anything because of that. I'm never concerned, and I don't think we should be, especially as black folks in this country, ever concerned about corporations that put dollar first. Our social and public interest is always going to be second to the dollar, because that's what they're in business for. And in order to protect their brand, their company, or that dollar from flowing in there, they're going to do what they have to do. So that's us understanding that area of business. But what we're talking about has nothing to do with business. It has something to do with people. So my enragement is going to happen when I see cats backing off from doing something because of the punishment that may be levied upon them because of their activity. That's the one thing a protest doesn't need, is people that don't have spines. If you're going to do it, do it. Take the hit. What's more important? So I expect corporations, I expect the NBA or any organization. I'm not just calling the NBA. If anybody did that, if ESPN did that, I wouldn't be surprised.
And
but if you said people like, but if here's the thing, if ESPN said we don't want you to protest, and I want to protest, and I don't protest because they say to me they don't want me to protest, and I'm fearful of what they're going to do to me because of a protest, then they raise me. Y'all should be mad at me, not ESPN.
Hey, great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
Your boy Larry has deemed him. He has an acronym for him. He calls them punks.
Punks. Players unconscious. PUNC. Players unconscious. It's just
I like that.
It's just irritating to me that you would actually have players calling themselves protesting by locking arms. Players calling themselves protesting by turning their jerseys inside out. Players calling themselves protesting by putting on a T-shirt that says "I can't breathe." It has to be more than that. You have to stand up for your humanity. And that to me is what pisses me off, that we got all of these young, wealthy black men that have no mindset of actually standing up for the humanity of their peers. Because a lot of these cats that's getting killed are their age group.
Stokely Carmichael in the house, ladies and gentlemen.
In Chicago, it's family. It was Dwayne Wade's family.
and
doing nothing. That pisses me off.
He made a nice speech.
Look, wait. Let me say this real quick. And Larry, I feel you, but you have to understand that we are living in probably the second generation of individuals who don't understand and were not taught how to protest. We've taught them that they are beyond that. They haven't learned they can read about it, but they haven't learned it. They haven't lived it. This is the first generation, probably second generation of minorities in this country that have gone beyond not understanding and not being taught and not inheriting the fabric of protesting. So we're asking them to do something that they don't necessarily know about. Now, the fact that they are speaking out.
So you telling me that they can't understand that they need to stand up for their humanity?
They think they are standing up. Listen, they think they are standing up by doing what they're doing.
That makes sense.
But in terms
they don't know it. They don't understand the picketing. They don't understand the sit down. They don't understand the striking. When in this generation have they had to have that in their lives?
Absolutely.
Never.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
On a whole different level. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying this is what you need to understand, because you getting mad is not going to change anything. What we need to do is teach them differently.
I think they
not be mad at them. Teach them differently. Understand We laid a foundation for them not to do that. Part of the blame is on us.
Ooh, that's deep. And I think in terms of the corporation, they don't understand that they are the commodity. And while the minority in the world, they are the majority of that corporation, and there is power within that.
I know, but we haven't taught them that there's more power to have in what they do besides the money that they make.
Right.
Agreed.
Right.
We're living in the second generation that equates money to power and only money to power.
Absolutely.
That's on us to make them understand that some things you have to lose money for, that you have more power without money sometimes than you do with money. But they haven't been taught any differently. And here's the thing, when we know that they haven't been taught anything differently, and we haven't stepped in to re-brainwash them on the power of money in America, that's not their fault.
Wait a minute. You got Muhammad Ali, you got Jim Brown, and you have all these individuals that have shown them way we learn. I mean, because in all honesty, Scoop,
you're talking about two different generations.
But what I'm saying, this is how we learn.
You're talking about two different generations.
They were doing it at the time we were kids. We learned directly from that.
That's right. That's right.
Name somebody that is under the age of 40 years old that had to deal with that. Ali's been gone 40 years, Jim Brown 40 years, Bill Russell 40 years, I've had 40 years. Name right now somebody under 40 that actually lived in that time, that knows that hasn't happened.
Right.
No, the leaders are, the examples are rappers. It's now music. It's
not even that. It's just changed. Protest has changed. I know we have all these people, but we have that, and we live through that. But when have we done this? When have we done? These are our kids I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm talking about the guys
That's powerful.
right now at the same age of my kids. When have they seen me out there with a picket sign?
Right.
When did they see me getting hosed down? When did they see dogs attack me? When they haven't seen me do anything? And I'm the blackest person in the world.
Man, you preaching over there, Scoop. You preaching.
So when they don't do what we want them to do, that was something that's been done 40 years ago, we can't necessarily just blame them. That comes on us because we haven't taught them.
Right.
But we have to understand that in their own protest, they're doing it in their own way. Now it's time for us to re-educate them. Say, all right, that's your first step, but that can't be your only step. That T-shirt is a good move. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, do you think?
Let's go further.
In spite of what has been said, do you think we will see some protests in the NBA this season?
I hope so. Once again, and we're going to see. Look, what did your grandmother always tell you? It's either going to come out in the wash or the dry.
Right.
I hope so. So my thing is that if there are players that do want to protest, when you have someone like Colin Kaepernick going out and being on the front line, when you have somebody like Carmelo Anthony going out, being on the front line, when you have, the Minnesota Lynx and Maya Moore and that crew going out, being out on the front line, and at least taking the hits. If there are other players who want to take the hits but step back because they're afraid of what may happen to them, then we got a problem.
Well, you also,
but if they don't want to do that and they think this is where the pinnacle of their protest gets them, then I can't be mad at them because they don't know any better. But if we tell them they can do this and they don't do it, then that's another story.
Scoop Jackson, want to thank you, brother.
You got to come back, man.
Time flies by when you're on. We appreciate you being with us. You know the deal.
Anytime.
We gotta have you back. Don't tell us that and not mean it now.
No, it's all good.
All right. We appreciate you being with us.
Man, we didn't even get to ask about Rondo. We didn't get to ask about Dwayne Wade.
Season's just started. He'll be here. He'll be back. He just said it now.
All right, man. Dang.
We'll be back on R&R on Sports right after this. We have come to the end of yet another R&R on Sports. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your being here. Baby. And this is the time that my counterparts sit here and tell you goodbye in every language every limited language that they can think of.
Now we're just repeating words.
Yeah, they know about 6. Yeah. They know about 6.
You keep talking.
But listen, Before I go, I have got to say that Cam Newton, you better than this.
Take off your
Make
tight
yourself
pants.
the same available when you lose as when you win.
You don't have to.
Don't be so
He hasn't been
tight.
doing much
Don't
dancing.
be so tight because they're going to ask you questions when you were winning and you're dabbing and all of that.
See, that's what he gave
you
up
had
the
time
dab.
for him.
He gave up the dab.
Now
he need to do the little juju.
you acting,
He need to do the little juju.
If
now
he does
you
a little
acting
juju,
crazy.
Odell
Come
Beckham
on.
Jr. is going to come knock on his door.
Come on,
Hey.
get yourself together and man up and answer the questions and be civil.
Talking about the WNBA, I'm going to say, hey, Tamika Catchings, we enjoyed having you on the show.
Hey.
We've enjoyed watching you play.
Been a wonderful life, wonderful career.
She is amazing. She has done amazing things off the court as well. I can't wait to see where she goes.
My last statements is going to be this. The NBA is back, baby! I'm so excited, and it's going to be much more parity this year. I'm looking for amazing things out of Joel Embiid up in Philadelphia. I'm looking for the Minnesota Timberwolves to do some stuff. And, man, I checked out the Cavs the other day, and they look phenomenal.
What about
And
the
those
Knicks?
Did you see those?
What about the
I think
Knicks?
the Knicks are going to be better this year.
I agree.
I think the Knicks are going to be
They
better
ain't gonna
this
run the
year.
triangle, but they gonna be
Did you
better.
see those big monstrosities of a ring that the Cavs got the other night?
Yes.
They got the little diamonds and rubies.
You know who's going to
record-
take the Cavs down, right?
Who's going to take them down?
Khloe Kardashian.
Hey, with
Tristan.
that, we're gonna say thanks for being with us.
Earring back.
Something like that.
Hush, we got to get out of
She
here.
ain't no holla back
Y'all have
girl.
a great week. Be back here with us, and remember, what do you say? Share and
Subscribe and like.
Thanks a lot. Y'all be cool.
Shalom.
R&R on Sports is recorded live at LPI Studios in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee. Web designer Daniel Coates, executive producer Larry Robinson, written by Howard Robertson, and produced by Reggie Fine. R&R on Sports, part of the Kutsukian Network.